in solitary confinement in one way or another in Virginia. So what we've been working on this year is a bill that Senator Morrissey introduced and Senator Vogel, who is a Republican, was a chief co-patron, SB 108. And what that does is that ends long-term solitary confinement in Virginia. Natasha and I spent a lot of time over the last several months meeting with Republican legislators as well. I'm going to let her go into all the details with that. But what we really have tried to do is create a bill that can bridge the gap between Republicans and Democrats on this issue, and they can create a safer place for those that are incarcerated by ending the torture of solitary confinement, as well as creating a safer place for those who work in the prisons, because it's been proven that ending extended solitary confinement makes prisons safer, and of course creating a safer place for each one of us in the community, because pretty much everyone who gets sentenced to solitary confinement is one day released back into the public. So SB 108, Senator Morrissey and Vogel's bill, that has passed committee in the Senate as well as the Senate Finance and Appropriations Committee. It also has a budget amendment for $10 million, but the fiscal impact statement the DOC provided came in below that. So we are in good shape legislatively in that sense. So we have everything we need in place for this bill to move forward. It's going to be going to the Senate floor sometime soon. We don't have a date for that yet. After that, it will then cross over into the House around Valentine's Day. That's when crossover is going to be this year. We also just found out that Delegate Hayes, Chris Hayes from Hampton Roads, has introduced, or his bill is being heard tomorrow morning in Public Safety Subcommittee number 2. This is a bill that is identical to the Senator Morrissey and Vogel's bill. So it's going to be making its way through the House as well. What we are really working on right now legislatively is trying to convince the Republican leadership to give this bill a chance. We really need Republican leadership, at least somebody on Republican leadership, to stand aside and say, let's let this bill get heard and give it a chance to get a fair vote on the floor. We feel that we have the votes on the floor of the House to get it to pass. We know we have the votes on the floor of the Senate to get it to pass. So with these two bills, as long as there are no amendments to either of them, since they are identical, with one in the House passing, or sorry, one in the Senate passing, and hopefully one in the House passing, then we would have a bill that would go to the governor to sign. We do not know what Governor Youngkin's stance is on this legislation, on this policy. He hasn't really talked about this. He hasn't talked really negatively or positively about a lot of the prison issues that are dealt with by solitary confinement. So it's a big unknown right now. So that's where we are with this bill. Senate bill going to be going to the floor soon. House bill can have its first hearing tomorrow morning. So we're excited, we're ready to go, and we've got a couple wins already under our belt. We're ready to get some more. I like that enthusiasm, Natasha. Love
you
it.
Already know. As David said, as Rabbi said, my name is Natasha White. I'm the coordinator for the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement and also the Virginia Director of Community Engagement at IAHR. I would first like to thank all that are in attendance for tonight's town hall. We all play a very important role in this world of advocacy, from legislators to the students that are hard at learning what life is all about. There can never be enough hands in the fight for human rights. I am grateful for the opportunity to fight alongside of you all. David and I toured Virginia in November and December of last year. On this tour, we scheduled numerous meetings, including elected officials such as Delegates Tony Wilt and Todd Gilbert in Shenandoah Valley. Then in Southside, we met with Delegate Daniel Marshall. Later on, we had the chance to meet with Delegate Robert Bell in Southwest VA and Delegate Marie Marsh in Roanoke. Lastly, we conversed with Delegate Terry Gilmore in Southwest and Delegate Ren Williams in Southside. We wanted to make sure we had the chance to persuade as many supporters for our cause in ending the torture of human beings behind bars. For this reason, we also went to probation offices in Southside, Shenandoah Valley, and Charlottesville, and placed the Virginia Coalition on Solitary Confinement's door knockers in the housing complexes of those who have been directly impacted by solitary confinement. Thankfully, we have the company of Angela Miles, a reporter for a VPM news magazine, who documented our journey on tour, and I anticipate that this footage will be released this year, in the beginning of the year. When reminiscing back to our rewarding experience on tour, I wanted to emphasize that we had the pleasure of building meaningful connections with the delegates and community members we met with. David and I did not meet with legislators in the Capitol building, and rather spoke with them in their own districts and hometowns. This broke down the barriers of what would have been a formal, strict, and short meeting in the Capitol, which normally lasts about 7 minutes. We got a glimpse into their personal ways of life. We engaged in over an hour-long conversations with delegates, where we learned about their family, passions, and reasons behind what they support. They opened themselves up to us, inviting us to their businesses, such as the restaurants they own that we dined at, and was having the chance to meet with community members and those who have been directly impacted as well. I remember the gratitude for the work that we are doing, which was humbling and a reminder of the importance behind our cause in advocating for people's rights. One guy even personally thanked us, stating he didn't know people cared. We also began a seminar series over Zoom called Students Against Solitary. The purpose behind this initiative was to generate more supporters and educate the public about the horrors of solitary confinement by inviting students at high schools and universities across the country. These youths are our future leaders. It is a priority to bring them abreast of the issues surrounding solitary confinement and emphasizing the importance of honoring people's human rights. We must continuously strive for a better, more humane society. For this reason, we intend to push forth with these series and raise more awareness. A few of the highlights in the series so far include our initial coffee talk meeting over Zoom after being invited by the Criminal Justice Student Organization at George Washington University. Later on last year, we were invited to present in person at Old Dominion University with students who are studying to receive a master's and PhD degrees in either social services and or criminal justice. In the mix of the tour and student series, I was invited by NARCAT to feature in a video series of short films titled Humans Out of Solitary, where a videographer came to my home and recorded my story, which of course includes the coalition, which will air later this month on the NARCAT website. As to date, with the legislative session being in full swing, we are locked in, attending and testifying at committee hearings. So far, we have gotten past both safety and finance appropriations committees, looking forward to making it through the House. I must say, go time never stops. All of this advocacy work reinforces the idea that we all need one another, and coming together can truly open the path for necessary changes in our criminal justice system. Thank you all again for your dedication to this fight.
Okay. Thank you so much, David and Natasha. I see Delegate Lopez is here. Delegate Lopez, do you have a few minutes so that people could ask a few questions about the presenters who just presented, and then we'll turn to you. Is that acceptable?
That's fine, yeah.
Okay,
That's
great. Okay, so are there any questions for David and Natasha, or any comments? If you have them, if you could just you either raise your hand and using the reaction button, or we have not a real large group, so perhaps you can just speak up, unmute yourself and speak up. So any questions or comments about David or Natasha's remarks?
Can I ask a quick question for Natasha? When she was meeting with all of the elected officials, and I appreciated you meeting with a very wide swath of folks that probably involved a great deal of driving, because they're all in rural communities and they're in, in several cases, 6 hours away from each other. I was curious, did you get any commitments from them to be supportive of a bill like this this session?
We have gotten interest of support. We just couldn't land somebody to actually step on the front line. A lot of the delegates we spoke to were new elects. they didn't want to take a stance because of monetary purposes. The fiscal impact that they put on us last year was tremendous and ridiculous. So nobody wanted to carry something that cost $30 million. However, that has changed as well. Yeah, it was a lot of driving and a lot of cheap hotels, but we got it done.
There you go.
It also gave us an opportunity to build a better relationship between David and I. We are like opposite sides of one coin. I call us Batman and the Joker. And I'm
excellent. Okay. Yeah, I was just curious, and if you could do me a favor, I've been working the bill as well through public safety, but if you could send me the names of all the people that you met with, that would be greatly appreciated. Absolutely. And just so you're aware, the budget impact for my bill this year, HB 908, is 0.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's news to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I have some people coming, some directly people attending the hearing tomorrow that will testify in support of your bill. We're all in this together. I don't care what the numbers of the bill are, as long as we get what we want. And that is better treatment for incarcerated individuals, because they are people. We do ourselves a disservice by treating people inhumanely. It speaks to exactly who you are as a person. I want to thank you, Delegate Lopez.
Thank you. No, my pleasure. My pleasure. Now, I have this coming up on Friday. You're saying it's tomorrow?
Yeah.
We have, there's a hearing tomorrow on our, on 1291 on the solitary bill.
Yeah,
On the solitary bill, not on my bill.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Sorry, I got the dates mixed up.
Yeah. So let me turn to Delegate Lopez. Perhaps you could please introduce yourself, Delegate Lopez, and maybe tell something about the district you represent, and then about 908. If you could describe what the issue is and the solution proposed in 908.
Sure. So my name is Alfonso Lopez. I'm the first Latino Democrat ever elected in the General Assembly's history. I represent the 49th district, which is South Arlington and Eastern Fairfax. And the district is also arguably one of the most diverse districts in the entire Commonwealth. There are over 100 languages spoken in the 49th district, and there are over 50 languages spoken at my local high school, Wakefield High School. Sort of the word like 22204 is basically the world in a zip code. And I'm very proud of my community and how wonderful it is in terms of being so diverse and so tight knit as well. We're just a stone's throw from the Potomac and the Pentagon, and it's inside the Beltway, but in all the best ways you can possibly be. I am also the Democratic whip for the House Democratic Caucus, and so I'm in my office right now. It's just been done with a very busy day, and I enjoy. Thank you for having me and giving me an opportunity to talk about this bill that I've been working on now for a while with Brian Hess. Who's an amazing guy. And so basically the bill 908 would prohibit the use of canines to intervene in an altercation, fight, or incident between incarcerated persons or extract them from their cells, unless as a last resort to prevent death or imminent serious bodily harm. It would also mandate any incidents involving canines have to be reported to a database established by the Department of Corrections, and these reports would then be made public and include the name of the facility the canine used and the name of the canine's handler. Lastly, it would make public the policies and regulations for the use of canines, the training requirements for both the canine and the correctional officers who use them, and the supervision of correctional officers who are permitted to handle canines. So several states have either banned or restricted the use of canines in their prisons, including North Carolina and Maryland. And even the U.S. military prohibits the use of canines on their prisoners of war. Not even the U.S. military would use canines on prisoners of war. And so why are we using them on our own folks here in the United States? Some of the things that canines are used for are really inhumane and need not happen at any correctional facility. And we all know the examples, allowing dogs to, I won't get into the details, but it can get pretty hard. The Washington Post and the Richmond Times-Dispatch have reported on civil rights lawsuits accusing the Department of Corrections of the use of systematic, brutal use of canines on prisoners. And so, I really appreciate Brian Hess for telling me about this bill. And I don't think any of this should be allowed in a civilized democracy. And this is not how we should be treating inmates. We don't need to do it this way. We shouldn't do it this way. And if the U.S. military says we can't do it with prisoners of war, we shouldn't be doing it with Virginia's own. So I'm anxious to hear what you have to say about the bill, any questions you might have, but also any support you can give me in terms of outreach to members of the Public Safety Committee, especially on the Republican side, would be really greatly appreciated. Because if we're going to get this done, we need the Republicans who have sort of stacked the deck on all the committees to stand with us.
Thank you, Delegate Lopez. And I'd just like to add a little more background, if I can. Those who just come on, I'm Chuck Feinberg, the Executive Director of IAHR, and the canine issue came out through the outstanding work of one of our outstanding volunteers, Gay Gardner, who over the last 6 years has been conducting correspondence with incarcerated people, mainly in the maximum security prisons, but also in other prisons, state prisons in Virginia. And this correspondence yielded then numerous examples of how attack dogs were used to break up fights, basically, in Virginia state prisons. And we found out that people suffered, were mauled by these dogs, or had severe injuries with long-lasting effects to their health. And it's through her work. What happened was, when another case came up, she went through her old correspondence and she realized there was a pattern here, that it's not just one in a million, that this was happening a number of times. And she came up with at least, I think, a dozen examples of this. And we were able to get some, as Delegate Lopez mentioned, we got some press on this. Teresa Vargas in the Washington Post and in the Richmond Times-Dispatch as well. And through that, then we make connection with Brian Hess. So maybe, Brian, you could introduce yourself now. And Brian's been instrumental in moving and helping move this legislation, first in creating the legislation, and then finding a sponsor with Delegate Lopez. And so I'd just like to introduce Brian and his role in all this.
Thank you. I work for Emmer Consulting, which is a federal lobbying consultancy. And we, as a Virginian, I sometimes like to dabble in state politics because you can get a little bit more done than you can with the current Congress. And Sue came to me because she's involved with IAHR and she's a pen pal with a number of incarcerated individuals and has volunteered with the organization and said, we found these problems in Virginia. Do you think you could do find a legislative solution? And I said, yeah. This is a horrible, horrible thing that's happening, and it does not belong anywhere in Virginia at all, let alone the U.S. or even global human rights. But and so I just kind of wanted to tackle it, and so I decided to start volunteering some of my time as a part of that to help draft the legislation, which was done in large part with David here, David Smith, as well as John Sturck. Gay was part of it, Rabbi Feinberg. And then, I live and have lived for the last 7 years in Delegate Lopez's district, and as such have, developed a relationship with him and wanted to bring it to him because he has championed issues like this time and time before. He didn't tell you this. He is routinely named one of the most progressive members of the Virginia General Assembly, has been a huge champion on a number of civil rights issues, even in immigration and housing reforms. And he's a great, I knew this would be right up his alley. And, it took honestly one phone call for him to be like, this is happening. And no, this will not happen anymore. And took the bill and has run with it from there. So he has been a great, great person to work with.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for giving it. So any comments or questions to either Delica Lopez or to Brian? Yeah, Becca.
Yes, I apologize for being so ignorant on this, but what methods would you use to break up a fight in the yard or wherever, other than the use of dogs?
Well, there are ways to de-escalate conflicts that are not violent. The use of dogs is kind of one of the most violent ways. So I'm sure Natasha could chip in on. Yeah, Natasha, would you like to?
I mean, you're a correction officer. You're part of your job is safety. You know, correctional. I've been incarcerated before. Most of the time, you know who actually helps break the fights up? The other inmates that are there. I hate the word inmate, but for the incarcerated individuals that are in the area normally break the fight up because it causes a whole shutdown. But I mean, to the extreme of using a dog just gives me the mindset of when I watch slavery movies and the master is sending the dog out to search for the slaves.
Yep.
That is the most inhumane treatment that can be done to a person. And at one point we were having a conversation about it, and somebody was actually concerned that the dogs would get hurt. If you send a dog in a cell with me, don't bet on him. Don't bet on him. We have to find other ways. Like whatever I have to do, whatever you need from me, as far as the community is concerned, with helping to back your bill, testimony, or what have you, just say the word. I got you.
The other thing to add is when you read a lot of Gay's stories that she has collected from these incarcerated individuals, you find that oftentimes the canine was deployed as the incident was resolving. In quite a few cases, the person who was bit was unconscious. And then you proceed to try to find video evidence, and then there's suggestions of cover-ups, and the tape is mysteriously gone. And and then when you look at the fact that Maryland, North Carolina don't do this, and a bunch of other states also don't, clearly there are ways to safely de-escalate conflicts between other individuals without resorting to this kind of inhumane abuse. Thanks,
Brian. Kim, yeah, please unmute yourself, please.
Thank you. I actually have 3 points. So to the delegate or to whoever can answer this, how prevalent is the use? First of all, let me just be real clear. 1 is too many. But when you said that Gay has been sort of tracking this, over what period of time and how many incidences are we talking about?
Okay, so I think over the last 3 years, we've gathered about at least 10 cases.
Holy crap!
Yeah, and
okay.
One of the things we found out right away is that the deploying dogs is not against policy. That is, it's part of the regulation. That is permissible in the regulations of the department, and so that's one of the other things we found out about this. So they're not breaking any rules by using it. It's not undercover in that sense.
I have a question, Rabbi, because I'm not familiar with. Well, I've never been incarcerated in Virginia, so when you say that it's not illegal to use the dogs, but I mean, there's not a limit to what you can use them for. Like we had dogs in corrections in New York, but they're strictly for drug searches. Strictly.
Yeah, right.
We even have puppy programs where we train the dogs for
Chuck, this is John. I just joined.
Yeah.
So let me just add a couple.
Please,
facts.
John. John, John, let me introduce you. John, hold on a second. Let me introduce you. John is a member of our board and has been very involved in sorting through these different cases. And so, John, go ahead. And is an attorney.
Gay, over the past 5 years, has tracked, I'm going to say, between 15 and 20 cases in prisons all over Virginia. And then some lawyers who are representing 2 incarcerated people who brought suit have found, I don't know, another 5 to 10 where individuals have filed lawsuits involving the use of dogs. With respect to the policy, there is a policy the state refuses to release the entire policy. So we don't know exactly what it says, but it's very explicit, Natasha, that dogs may be and are used to control prisoners inside of institutions. So this isn't sniffing, just sniffing or patrolling the grounds. This is an actual use of a canine in lieu of tear gas or in addition to tear gas to break up fights, to control inmate behavior within the institutions. And it exists in at least 4 or 5 prisons within Virginia.
Right. And that's why the transparency and data collection parts of the bill, I mean, when you look at a lot of the other prohibitions of this kind of activity, you find that it's just like you can't use them to extract cell, or there's you can or cannot use canines in a particular manner. We are right now, from what I can tell, one of the first states to actually incorporate a data collection component to this legislation, knowing that because we have this imminent serious bodily harm and death loophole that we had to write for its chances. We want to know then, okay, you use this canine on this time. Now we want a public accountability to know that there was a serious occasion in which a canine had to be used, which I will say 99.9% of the time it's going to be the case. They don't have to be used, but that's why we want to know. And the fact that like Dave FOIA requested, IAHR's FOIA requested for those results and got 64 pages of redactions is why Delegate Lopez's bill says you have to make these public and you now have to report and let everybody know, because light is the best disinfectant. Transparency is necessary for a functioning democracy.
Yeah.
I think we also need to emphasize.
I'm sorry, Kim I want to get back to Kim, but she had a couple other questions.
Well, and I actually wanted to kind of, I guess, direct this to the delegate. So, and to Natasha's point about dogs bringing up, images and feelings and trauma associated with slavery. And we're talking about our prison population, which is in fact largely African-American because, well, we all know the reasons. And so I'm wondering if in order to both compel compliance by the department, I'm glad there's a reporting requirement because so much legislation is always drafted without that reporting, and you can't fight what you can't see and you can't see what they don't show you. But I'm wondering if there is the opportunity, which we've done in our solitary bill in Maryland, to put a cause of action so that, if the dogs were used, I mean, obviously we want to get rid of them, but if the dog was used and the individual can show harm, again, trauma, physical injury, mental health impact, and all of that, that they could then have a cause of action against the state to pursue damages, to pursue, whatever legal remedy may be available to them. This is where you're going to tell me you already put it in there and I'm like, behind the 8 ball, right?
No. I'd have to go make sure that we have that, and I apologize. As a part of my job, I have to read all 1,300 of our bills, and I'm usually helping everyone else except for myself. So let me look at this real quick.
I'm just trying to think of ways to put teeth in things.
So if you look at line 19.
Oh, I don't have the bill. I'm in Maryland.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, if you look at line 19, 53.1-39.2, section B, all this incidents involving the use shall be reported to a database established, shall be available to the public and shall include the name. It does not say the incident or the cause. So we don't include that.
Because something else that I'm thinking too is, again, to force these departments to do better. We know that there are other ways to de-escalate a situation. And so maybe a report on, and again, I've only had one cup of coffee today and it's been a heck of a week. But I'm also thinking that maybe there's a way to make them report out on incidences where they had to employ a dog or what their de-escalation tactics were in situations, and that it has to be on their website. And an annual report. So the
Right.
number of what their de-escalation tactics are, how many times they were
Yeah.
employed and at what institution.
Right.
I mean, I
Yeah,
don't know if
that's
that
not
would
gonna
fly
happen.
in Virginia.
That's not going to happen.
Okay.
Because I don't want to be Virginia has gone Republican,
Yeah, that's true.
and I'd love to include a lot of the perfects in some of these
Right.
bills, but I have to roll back
Realistic.
some of the
yes,
stuff I'd like.
I understand.
I want to get the bill passed.
Right. No, I
Does
get
make
that.
sense?
Oh,
And so
absolutely.
the Republicans have basically I'm always struck by some of my constituents who say, well, I can't believe we still have this law in the books in Virginia. And I'm like, right, or friends from California or from New York or Maryland who say, like, well, why is this like this?
It's feedback.
I'm getting a lot of feedback here, guys.
Yeah.
What's going on?
It was John. John was logged
Yeah,
in.
okay. I think we're better now. Yeah.
And so, we're trying to, move Virginia forward and not, but because we're no longer in the majority, it's going to be baby steps as opposed to giant leaps forward again. So,
Right. No, I completely understand that. It's also another reason why I don't live in Virginia anymore.
well, actually, no.
How do you
That's really the wrong reason not to live in Virginia, because what we want is we need your votes so that you can come back to Virginia and move us in the right direction.
I can't afford to live in Vienna, and that's where I want to move back to.
Okay.
I have a question to
Please.
Delegate Lopez.
Yeah, let's move on.
What do
Yeah.
you see as far as, like, where do you see the strength as far as support is concerned in your bill? Like, where do you see it coming from? We spoke about this. We spoke about the K-9 bill in a meeting, I think last week. I don't know. We have so many meetings, I can't tell you. But the interesting part was, if we cannot appeal to the Republicans with the torture it is on the incarcerated individual, who we can always go with the animal cruelty bit of the animals possibly being hurt. I mean, you got to get it how you can.
Right. I know. And it's different for each member.
Right.
Each member is going to have a different approach. So what I'm trying to do is, as everyone is working to reach out to members of the committee, please let Brian know about those contacts and about what the responses were. And I'm working with folks on a one-on-one basis when I talk to them about 12 different ways to get to yes on something.
Okay.
I will tell you that in the last several days, we are seeing a large number of our bills die on party line votes. And this should not be a party line issue. This should not be a partisan issue. And we need to do everything we can to make sure that the Republicans don't see it that way.
Understood.
If I can respond to Kim's chat text, David just did. We've learned that the Correctional Officers Union has actually been working with was very supportive of Delegate Corey's version, a similar version of this bill, though that version just focused on cell extractions. We are working on getting their affirmative support of 908, the Correctional Officers Union. They, from what I was told by Delegate Corey, that they were appalled that this was happening. They were unaware, which also just goes to show the more important side of, we need data. Because if we've collected 20 some stories, that's probably the tip of the iceberg. And
Right.
So I think we have some options. If we can get the Correctionals Union on side, that might actually help with some moderate Republicans, if any union hating Republicans exist in the General Assembly these days. But we can work forward with that, and David and I are working together closely to accomplish that goal.
Right.
Right.
Well, I want to thank Delegate Lopez for his efforts in this area. Wish you all kinds of success in the work that you're doing. So thank you so much.
No, and thank you everyone for being such
Yeah.
great activists and advocates, and please keep staying involved and working on issues like this. The only way stuff gets accomplished is if we're all fighting and pulling the oars in the same direction. And so thank you very much for all that you guys do.
Okay. Natasha, did you want to say something else? No. Yes, no? Okay. If not, I'd like to turn now to Kim Haven, who's IHR's liaison to the Maryland legislature and has worked with us now for a number of years on our on different pieces of legislation. So Kim, could you talk about HB 67 in Maryland and what it is and where it stands?
Absolutely. And thank everybody. I thank everybody for coming out tonight. I am working in Maryland on HB 67, and I don't know if people on this call know sort of like the history of how we got to HB 67, but just by way of a very brief backstory, a couple of years ago, we introduced and supported a huge bill. It was an omnibus bill that just kind of sought to do everything. We front loaded it. We put everything in it that we wanted. And it was so unwieldy. It was so complicated. People didn't understand it. Heck, half the people that we were working on it with didn't understand it. And so when we got to the bill hearings, what came out of the bill hearings were four very separate populations that the legislators were concerned about and our use of solitary confinement. One was juveniles, one was pregnant individuals, one was individuals with serious mental illness, and the other one was direct release back to the community. So after we, licked our wounds and bemoaned our legislative efforts, we regrouped and we retooled. And so then we supported getting rid of solitary confinement with juveniles, and the ACLU took the lead on that, and IAHR was a co-partner in that, and we passed that bill very easily, and that was amazing. The next thing that we took on with reproductive justice inside, again in collaboration with IAHR, was to end the use of solitary confinement on pregnant and post-pregnant women. And we became the first in the state to pass that legislation. We then turned our attention to the serious mental illness and the direct release. The serious mental illness, working in collaboration with Disability Rights Maryland, is a quagmire. We should not obviously be putting individuals who have been identified as having serious mental illness in restrictive housing at all, ever, no way. Stop it now. But the problem comes in with, what are we going to do? How are we going to treat? How are we going to house? And then it came down to who identifies them. And so we worked with Disability Rights to say we would use the department's definition of serious mental illness just in order to get the bill passed. And we got opposition from the American Psychiatric Association, some medical associations, who felt that the definition that the department uses is not broad enough. We certainly agree with that. And so that bill died. And now the update on that is that it is now going through the litigation route. Disability Rights Maryland has filed suit against the state of Maryland earlier. I mean, I guess it was like the later part of last year. I keep wanting to think that this year is like so much further ahead. And so they filed a lawsuit. And so that's working its way through the courts. The direct release bill, we have come so close to the edge of getting this thing passed. We were on sine die, the day of adjournment. We were in the Senate. We were on third reader, and we had all the votes. And then the department called one of our Republican senators and said, stall the bill. And so he did a tactic to special order, which we still could have come up, but this was the year that Speaker Bush passed away, and they ended session early so that the elected officials could pay respects to his family. And then we had two senators who got engaged in a verbal battle on the floor, and the clock ran out. To say that I was sitting in the gallery and I was devastated would be an understatement. But undaunted, we came back, and then COVID hit, and nothing happened. And understandably, we were in a pandemic, and nobody knew what was going on. And then police reform kicked up. And so we've worked very hard since last session, and certainly over the summer, to engage leadership around our issue. The Secretary of Corrections has kind of avoided everybody. So we've been working with the Senate President and the Senate Chair and the Vice Chair, the Speaker of the House Judiciary Chair, and we have a new Vice Chair who is committed to this. And we have commitments from the Senate leadership and also from the House Vice Chair to move this bill this year. Like, this just does not make sense to anybody. It is a clean, simple, just stop doing this kind of thing. So we felt good about it, but then our bill sponsor wanted to add the cause of action that you heard me reference, suggesting to the Virginia delegate. And so we added that. That was the substantive change to our bill. If somebody is denied the opportunity to step down, which is what this bill says, that individuals are, they're required to do a step down program. And by step down, it's increasing the time out of cell. It is increasing access to privileges. It is resocialization. It is evaluations, whether it's going back to general population or it's back to the community. Because we were releasing directly from solitary confinement to the community about 300 people a year without any kind of transition, no step down, no socialization. And that's a public safety threat, let's be real. And so this year we came back, and our bill is the step down bill. It's a very clean bill, and it is HB 67. And we had our hearing, holy crap, what is today?
It was yesterday.
Oh my God. Yeah, we had our hearing yesterday. That's how this week has gone for me. And we had our hearing, but the day before, on Monday, I had the opportunity to meet with representatives of our public safety and correctional services. And those of you that know me know I like to kind of fight with them. I like to fight with them a lot. And we had a good meeting. It was, they presented their thoughts, and then they tried to sell how great they're doing. This is why we don't need the bill, because we're doing so great. And so I brought up the fact that Maryland by law is required. They are required by Maryland law to issue a restrictive housing report at the end of every year. They have failed to do that for the last 2 years. And so I brought that up, and lo and behold, the 2 years of restrictive housing reports are suddenly available, but they're not on the department's website where they're supposed to be. They're on the governor's website. And so, me being the suspicious person that I am, and, my prison paranoia kicks in, and, I know they just did this. But so we got the report, and both reports. And then they said, but we don't need this legislation. And I said, tell me why. And she said, well, we've used a new methodology. So we've gone back and we've recalculated all of the information around restrictive housing. And it turns out that we were counting people twice. No. So I said, okay, we'll take a look at the reports. And I said, why else do we not need this legislation? And she said, well, according to this new methodology, our use of solitary confinement has decreased by 60%. So that's great. I said, then why do you need 31 new people? And your prison population decreased by 16%, and you hired all of these new social workers, including regional social workers, directors, and a new one that works at headquarters to make sure that everybody has what they need. Why do you need 31 positions? And she said, well, our number cruncher said that we would have to retrofit facilities in order to accommodate this. And we need officers to escort them. And I said, stop right there. You're already doing this in 11 of your 13 institutions with no impact. You're saying you're already doing this. You have 2 officers escorting already. This isn't a burden. You can do this with we beat down, long and short, because I know I want to be respectful of people's time. We beat back every single one of her objections. She was not happy with me, safe to say, but there was nothing she could say. So after the meeting was over, I found out that they submitted a letter to the committee as they offered testimony. But what was interesting to me is that this year they didn't oppose it. Normally they will say, unfavorable. This year it was a letter of information. And I thought that was interesting. And every year the correctional officers union has come out and opposed us. Nope, not a single one. And so when we got to the hearing, and you can actually watch the hearing on the Maryland General Assembly YouTube channel. The other thing they brought up was the department felt that they didn't need to legislate this. Because they want to be agile and nimble as best practices come up. My response, of course, was we support being agile and nimble. But let's be real, the next best practice is to stop doing this altogether. And so there was no comeback for that. And so we beat back every single one of their objections. We feel really good about the hearing. The follow-up has been, I'm going back and touching base with all the members of the committee. We do have some new ones. And I'm just waiting for the voting list, which would probably be in the next, I'm saying 7 to 10 business days. And so we're shoring up the votes that we have. We moved it out of committee, out of the public safety subcommittee. And now it's the judiciary. And so we have the votes. We just need to make sure they're shored up because there are a couple of new faces and some new Republicans. But we felt good about the hearing and they didn't raise any questions. But I thought what was really telling to and actually I had a legislator tell me this afternoon, that the fact that the department did not object and the union did not object, they felt was that's why this needed to be mandated. One other point that sort of came up, and I don't know if it comes up in Virginia or not, but the other question that we were asked is, why does this have to be mandated? Why do we need to do this legislatively when we're making such great strides? And my response was simply, administrations change. If we codify this, then a new administration's not just going to come in and say willy-nilly, okay, today we're not doing this anymore. Today we're going back to. And so it does provide a certain amount of protection when we pass this bill. And so we are moving full steam ahead. Our session ends in early April. We are waiting to get the bill number from our Senate, and we will have a hearing in the Senate. The only issue that we sort of had was Disability Rights Maryland wanted to put in an amendment, and it really involved mental illness, but without like expanding on definitions and things like that. So we will probably adopt that amendment. It doesn't hurt us in any way. It doesn't add to the fiscal note in any way. And so we're moving forward. We're excited about it. And we keep hearing this is going to be the year for Maryland. But the other thing that's been different about this is that we're using this bill and its passage to continue to lay and build up the groundwork for the next phase of changing solitary completely in Maryland, to getting them to where we stop using it. We look at the 15 days, we completely retool and revamp how they use it, why they use it. And so some of the elected officials who aren't facing, re-election challenges and that are supporters of this are behind it. And so again, it's these conditions of confinement that cause attention, and nobody wants to see the state or them above the fold. And so we're moving fast track in Maryland. I'm thrilled. I love this stuff.
Well, that's a blessing. What I've learned since coming to Virginia is that the DMV is closely knit. I can say that I don't know what issues had occurred during the introduction of 1301, but as soon as I got here, like our first press conference was basically going against DOC's claim and award at ending solitary. So they, even with our meetings with corrections and the finance committee, Ms. McGinnis, who is a defense attorney, like basically was throwing back everything they were trying to roll at us. They know we know the truth. Being formerly incarcerated, as yourself, this is really personal for me. So they don't like me either. And I choose not to talk to corrections because I might, I'm not polite. Let's face it. They're going to be like, oh, she's rude. She's this, she's that. No, I'm honest. You're lying and you are continuing to torture people. We have to stay strong in the fight. I don't know how many people on this call are actually Virginia residents, as I said, with the DMV being so close knit, but I do know, you probably know a lot of people in Virginia. On the Interfaith Action for Human Rights website, there are letters for both bills, 108 and the Maryland bill. What is it, 67?
67, yes.
67, please. If you're in Maryland, sign on. If you're in Virginia, sign on. Reach out to your legislators. Reach out to your friends that have legislators in different districts. To me, it does not matter that we are on our way to the floor because I've seen things go whirlwind at the last inning. We have to stay fast on what we want.
And I will tell you that I've had several delegates say that they've been getting a flood of emails from IAHR since we started this. And these are committee members. And so they are, they're aware that there is broad support, but we need more broad support, as Natasha was saying. Help us spread the word. I'm more than happy to. I know Rabbi Feinberg is, I'm sure in Virginia, Natasha is. We're happy to go speak to groups, and Zoom is great, to build the support for this. Yep.
Yep.
I'll drive anywhere, believe me. I have gone through very extensive measures to turn somebody's mind around. Before I came to Virginia, I was a New York resident on the whole solitary campaign, which lasted 8 years. We didn't get that bill signed until we slept in front of Governor Cuomo's office. The next day, he was like, I just can't take it no more here. So, sometimes you got to do something strange for a little bit of change.
Yep. Well, we feel good about this year. We certainly still need all the support that we can get. We still need, people to mobilize. We need people to donate to IAHR so that we can continue in this fight. But we definitely are asking, spread the word, drive people to the website so that they can sign those letters. It's been made so easy that it's just information, hit, go. And the legislators are getting it because they're telling me they're getting it. And so that makes me happy. So I think that if you have any questions about the Maryland campaign, or there's other ways that you want to get involved, certainly I originally put my contact information in the chat. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody. I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I saw that the link for the hearing was also put in the chat. So I would suggest, you watch that as well. And like I said, I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody may have.
Great.
And thank you for letting me take us all the way to 6:59.
Yeah. Thank you, Kim. So are there any other comments or questions?
I have a quick question.
Please.
Sorry, I'm Elizabeth Hilliard. I'm with the Maryland Office of the Public Defender. And actually, I grew up in Northern Virginia and am super stoked to hear. This is my first meeting with you all. I'm really stoked to hear about the work you're doing. And I will be sure all of my extensive family and friends in Virginia are going to be spamming your website now.
We also need your MOPD stuff, Elizabeth. We need your MOPD folks.
Oh, so that was my next point was going to be. So Kim, I had been trying to get in touch with you. Actually, I'm so sorry. I missed your call. I've missed, we've crossed wires. So I just want you to know, the Maryland Office of the Public Defender has had some shifting around in the Government Relations Division, but we are very, very supportive of this bill. We testified in support of it. We want to help you any way we can. I'm also going to I'll drop my information in the chat as well.
Please do.
And really, this is for anyone, because like I said, I grew up in Northern Virginia. I am from Woodbridge. I don't know if any of you are familiar, but yeah, a lot of my friends and family still all live in Virginia. So I would be happy to advocate in any way that I can. I run the Maryland Office of the Public Defender Twitter account. I will be dropping the links for that. Or I mean, I will be dropping the link for the letter in the Twitter account. And Kim, the only like comment or question I had was just, do you think that if the cause of action addition is going to be a sticking point? I see it being more of a sticking point in the Senate than in the House. Do you think that's something that's like flexible or?
Yeah, I've talked to Jazz about that, because I was the reason I was testifying on 8 bills yesterday.
I know, I watched you.
Yeah, in 2 chambers, 3 committees, while sitting on a focus group with the International Association of Chiefs of Police. To say that I was crazy yesterday would be an understatement. But one of the things that I did here in the Senate hearing was a bill that was also offering, and I can't remember the bill number. I think it was the wrongful conviction one. And being able to sue. And so I heard some of the feedback from the senators on that. And so I did have a conversation with Delegate Lewis. And while we really want that, if getting this bill to the governor's desk for signature requires that we drop that, because one of the other comments that came up was, instead of having the right to sue, could you get like a civil injunction? Well, if you've harmed me, a civil injunction does absolutely nothing. So that sort of came up in the hearing. So we're working the Senate to see who's going to come up with something. Our biggest opposition is going to be Casserly out of Harford County. He's the one that tanked our bill when we were on the Senate floor. And I know this for a fact because he told us. He said that department had called him and said, special order the bill, stall it. So we know this for a fact. They're not above shenanigans. And that's what like Natasha said, we have to stand strong. We have to stay united. We have to keep pushing, and we've got to, not let our guard down for any moment until sine die, till that gavel falls.
Yeah, please. Please use me. We have interns working on these bills. We have working on our bills. And same goes for you, Virginia folks. Please, whatever you need. Yeah. Thank you.
I will circle back with you, Elizabeth, because I know we did, play phone tag.
Victor had a question or a comment. Victor.
Yeah. So I just had a comment. Thank you all. And Victor Pate here, New York campaign, Halt Solitary campaign. And I will be stopping in from time to time. I just want to say that you all are on a good path right now. All hands on deck is surely what's needed. I know Tasha has spoken about, this many a times. And, when she was here with us in New York, she definitely was an engine and energy with the campaign and the coalition. Like I say, when doing this kind of work, never give up and never give in. By the way, I'm now no longer organizer. I'm the co-director of the Halt Solitary Confinement campaign, because we are now heading towards our implementation period of our bill, which is going to be March 31st, and our trajectory and our directions have definitely changed, and the focus of what we're doing here in New York, just to make sure that this bill, when it's implemented, is implemented in its entirety as it was prescribed to be according to the Halt bill. And one of the things I can definitely say from my years of experience in doing this coalition work, that you think this work takes a lot, wait until you get your bill signed. Okay, this is really the preliminary. You're really just laying the platform to open the door for what has to happen once your bill is passed. Because I think that once this bill is passed, that's when your work begins, because you're going to have to be monitoring and watching. And you're talking about legislators and people people who have oversight responsibility. I think that the real core work happens after your bill is signed, and you have to watch to make sure that it's being implemented. But I want to offer and say to you all that you always have the support of the New York campaign. Natasha already know all of our resources at our hand. All you all need to do is call and say what you need, and I'm there. Our campaign is there, our resources are there, and we're there to support you all in any way we can. So I will stop in from time to time when time allows. And I just want to say that, and I have to jump off for another call, but continue to doing the work, and Natasha will talk.
Victor, thank you.
Thank
I'll
you
be
so
reaching
much,
out to you.
Victor. Yeah, thank you for so much. Okay. Are there any other questions or comments? I think we're at the hour is almost, our hour is about up. And we've covered everything that I wanted to see covered. But if there are other questions or comments, certainly this would be the time. Okay, I think what I really appreciate everyone tuning in and participating in this program. And we will, once we get, there's some more movement one way or the other, we will report back and have another meeting like this. So once we have something news to give you that's relevant and meaningful, then we'll set up another town hall meeting like this. So I really appreciate everyone's participation in this, and your interest and your support. So keep writing your delegates and your senators. And support, go to our website and sign on to the letters in Maryland or in Virginia. And you know, we send the letter with all the signatories to the chairs, to everyone in the relevant committees. So thank you so much. I wish everyone a good night.
Good night.
Yeah,
Good night,
care,
everybody. Thank you.
Yeah. Lucy, how are you?
Fine, and I apologize. I wrote 7 o'clock on my calendar.
Yeah, it's 6 to 7.
Yeah, usually, sorry, usually it's they start at 7. So anyway,
Yeah. So
I've been writing my HB 67, 87, whatever one. I've been,
thank you.
So,
that's great.
all right. Thanks.
Okay. Great to
Hope
see
you're
you,
well.
though.
I hope you're well.
Yeah, we're all well
All
here.
of you.
Thank you.
Good. The
Yeah,
family
we're doing
too.
all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. Take care.